our wild plum, and that's the first plant to flower in the spring, right? Do you remember that? Do you remember in the spring we saw those tiny little cascade of flowers that came down, and we ate the tiny little leaves that were just popping out? Do you remember that?
No, I don't think we did that. Yeah.
Oh, we didn't do that. Oh, so that's the plant we weren't able to utilize this year because the plum, it's wild plum, and the plums get ripe usually in June, but this year, and I was watching them, you know, and they became ripe in May when I went to see my niece walk down the aisle. And this is these plums were in huge competition with the birds for. Last year, my wild plum bush that was just outside my front door there was laden, and this year's pretty well laden, not as much as last year. I think this is a bush that goes in cycles. And so, while the 5 days that I was in Chicago, the plums were exactly ripe, and what comes is the robins. The robins came and ate every last plum. When I came home, there wasn't a single plum. We were gonna make plum jam. And this tree is really good for your digestive system because it helps to move things. It helps to move things through your digestive system that may not want to move because you have a digestive system that is moving slowly. It helps to, you know, get things moving and the waste products out. So that's, you know, in the early spring we eat the tiny little leaf buds, and they taste like a bitter cucumber. Really good. And then, like I said, normally in June is when the plums are ripe, and this year it was May, middle of May. And so this is the time of year when it dies back. But it's dying back differently than it usually does. We usually see yellow leaves that fall off, not these brown, giving up the ghost. We've had a lot of drought, and I just need to go to sleep. I'm done for the year. I'm going to try again next year. That's what this is doing. It's a little spooky. We'll see what happens next year. Melissa, did you have a question?
I just didn't hear the name of the plant.
It's wild plum.
Well,
Yep. Sometimes called Indian plum.
And what part of the plant do you use? You said in the spring it's the
tiny little leaf buds, but we, you know, that's something that I just eat a little bit. To me, it's saying it's spring, you know, and usually it's February when it comes out, about middle of February. And I like walking in the woods to see what's emerging. The nettles emerged far earlier this year than ever before. Oh my goodness, like a few weeks earlier. That should have told us something. Like the plants knew there was going to be a drought before we knew we knew of the drought. So it's really interesting. And then you see all the nettles here. Usually this is what nettles looks like in October, and here it is middle of August. So usually this time of year we're harvesting the nettle seeds, and the nettle seeds primarily are used for as a stimulant. Okay, it helps to create a lot of energy in our body. Now, that being said, people will use the nettle seeds for helping adrenal fatigue. And whenever I hear that on in a book, or I hear another herbalist or somebody say that, or I see it on an internet site that keeps getting perpetuated, I just cringe. I absolutely cringe. Because if you have adrenal fatigue already, we have adrenals that are overworked, overburdened, right? And what happens in our adrenal glands? What's the purpose of our adrenal glands?
help us with stress.
Right, help us with stress. It's our cortisol gets produced there, our flight and fight. Also our sex hormones. It's one of the places where those are produced. And so people say, I'm really fatigued, I'm going to eat nettle seeds because it's going to give me that great big burst of energy. But if you're really tired, what happens when you're really tired and you keep, say, drinking the Red Bull or drinking the coffee? What's going to happen eventually?
You crash.
You crash. You're going to crash. So to say you have adrenal fatigue, something that's already overly burdened, overly sensitive, basically on its last legs, just trying to make it through the day, you're going to give it a punch to, but wait, you got to run around the block one more time. You got to put out that extra mile. Nettle seeds is not the way to go. Okay, so what we want to do is figure out what is the adrenal fatigue coming from. What is the source of the problem? And then we're going to go that way.